What? John Fuda was arrested? Yes, and Teresa Giudice reportedly was trying to get this out there, and guess what? Now it's out there, so we're going to talk about it. We also have Melissa Gorga, who is clapping back at Kathy Wakile now that they're neighbors, and Rachel Leviss is calling out Stassi Schroeder. Okay, let's get into it, I guess. You're listening to No Filter with Zack Peter, your go-to source for all the latest pop culture and reality TV tea, served fresh all week long. Now, let's dive in. What's going on, everybody? Welcome on in, welcome on in, welcome on in. Let's get it, get it, get it. What's up, guys? What's today? Today's Wednesday. Sorry. I forget what day it is. I'm like, today is today. I don't know what day it is, but it's today. I also think I'm supposed to be back on TMZ today. So be sure to check TMZ Live on your local listings. Check it on out, and I'll be sure to share the clip once I have it for you guys. But yeah. All right. Well, where should we begin? Actually, let's begin with the Rachel Leviss stuff, and then we'll get into all of the John Fuda of it all, because there's a lot to dive into, and I'll read the articles. But just wanted to start. Well, actually, no, let's start with the Melissa Gorga, Kathy Wakile stuff. So Melissa Gorga is clapping back at Kathy Wakile because Melissa was on Jeff Lewis Live. And on Jeff Lewis Live, she said that Kathy and Richie had purchased the house across the street, right? And purchased the house across the street, and she was like, I'm hoping that Joe and Kathy can make amends, because if they make amends, then, hopefully we can move forward. Like, Joe is really close to Rosie. I just want everybody to be good. Like, they literally live across the street from us. I think it would be nice if they made up. Maybe they're walking down the street and they run into each other, whatever. Fast forward, then Kathy Wakile comes out, and she is at the bar on Watch What Happens Live, because she's not relevant enough to hold a seat. But actually, I will say I've met Kathy Wakile, very lovely woman, very, very sweet woman. And I adore her. But I mean, she wasn't like, nobody's like, oh my God, Real Housewives of New Jersey, I was a Kathy Wakile fan. Yes. Like, nobody was a Kathy Wakile fan. She was great on the show. Like, she was like a Jen Fester. I don't even know if I would say a Jen Fester. Like, she added an element that we needed to the show at that time, but like, there was no need to continue to keep her on the show, especially when Teresa lobbied very hard to have Kathy kicked off, and she's like, I want to cut out the cancer, right? So Kathy Wakile goes on Watch What Happens Live, and she tells Andy Cohen, she's like, oh, it's Melissa Lane, and like, there are multiple acres, and that they likely won't have to run into each other and won't have to see each other. And then talks about how it's very convenient that Melissa Gorga wants to suddenly make amends. I don't know what's so convenient, other than like, you're moving across the street and you guys are blood and your family. So like, why not try to make amends? Like, why continue to have hostility? So I was confused by why Kathy was being so like snarky and shady on Watch What Happens Live, because I was like, Melissa didn't say anything bad, and Melissa didn't talk about like having Kathy on the show or not having Kathy on the show. Like, it was like, hey, we're neighbor. Like, if your cousin moves across the street from you, you're gonna at some point happen to run into your cousin. Like, why not make amends? And so Kathy was being really shady, and I talked about it when it first came out. But now Joe Gorga and Melissa Gorga are on Melissa's On Display podcast. On display, each and every day, every day, every day. Yeah, even Danny Gossip Gal in the live chat says that Watch What Happens Live interview with Kathy was really awkward and unexpected, in my opinion. Yeah, it was. And it like, the shade was just unnecessary, right? Like, trying to patch things up, and you're like trying to be like weird and shady. But so Melissa and Joe were talking about it, and Joe told the story of him running into Richie at, I guess, the hardware store or something. He was going to get like parts or tools, I don't know, something with his hands, because he's a man. And Rich Wakile that was there too, and he's a man, and they're both men, and they buy men things. And so I guess like Joe Gorga slipped and fell, and Richie leaned over and was like, oh, are you okay? And then Joe's like, oh, hey, what's up, Wakile? And then Richie was just like, that's Mr. Wakile to you. And then he like walked away and like, was kind of rude to Joe Gorga, according to Joe Gorga. So they're going to run into each other because they're in the same town and they live on the same street, right? Well, Melissa's, like, reacting to what Kathy said on Watch What Happens Live, and she's like, "It's just weird." She's like, "I don't understand why Kathy was, like, being nasty on Watch What Happens Live. Like, it just feels unnecessary." And I get it from, like, Kathy's perspective of, like, because I think Kathy and Joe says this on the show that like they're bitter that they're not on the show anymore and that the Gorgas are still on the show. And Melissa's like, listen, you were defending your sister. You were doing, what your family wanted you to do. You thought you were backing up Teresa by, taking a step back from Kathy. And I guess Kathy felt like they were taking a step back from her because Kathy was no longer on the show and they didn't lobby or fight to have Kathy still be a part of the show in the future. And I don't know. Like, why not just mend fences? Like, at this point, who knows what's going to happen with the fucking show? The show doesn't matter at the end of the day. Caroline Manso said it best, even though she's not my favorite. She said it best. She's like, Teresa, this is 15 minutes. This is a blip in time. This is going to be over and done before you know it. And I don't know. I feel like this dragged out beef is unnecessary, but I do agree with Joe Gorga. I think the Wakiles are bitter that they're no longer on the show anymore. But that's not, I mean, I guess it partially is due to the Gorgas because they kind of didn't really make an effort with Kathy after Kathy left the show. But Melissa's like, we did it out of loyalty to Teresa. And she was like, listen, maybe it was, or she's like, she said maybe. And then she caught herself and she's like, it was definitely the wrong idea to choose Teresa over Kathy. But like, we were doing what we thought was the right thing to do in the moment. And obviously, picking Teresa's side did nothing for us at the end of the day because, we don't talk to Teresa and she's continued to, you know, not speak nicely of us and vice versa, right? Like they don't like each other. The Gorgas don't care for Teresa. Teresa doesn't care for the Gorgas. Whatever. What else? Did you say anything else? Yeah, they said that they don't have any ill will towards them and that at this point, she says that it was petty. She said, it's Kathy's loss. Stay on your side of the street. All good. I tried to say something nice and like just whatever. I don't think I like to the attitude. I'm like, it's weird. We haven't seen her in a very long time. So I just thought it was a little petty. I agree. Kathy Wakile was being petty spaghetti. Okay, let's dive into the John Fuda of it all because this is probably gonna be the meat of the episode. And then we'll talk about Rachel Levis and Stassi because I just thought that story was fun. It just made me laugh. Or actually, it's such a quick story. Rachel was on her podcast, and I guess she was talking about being a pageant girl, and she was talking about how there was a moment where she was like applying to work at SUR, and Stassi Schroeder happened to be there, and Stassi basically told Rachel, "The worse you behave, the more you're rewarded on Vanderpump Rules." And Rachel's like, "But I never took that advice. Like, I was never going to do that." I was like, "Really? Were you?" What? Because you were like trying to fight with Lala, and then you were trying to make out with Schwartz when Katie told you not to, and Katie said that that was gonna hurt, and you like still tried to like make waves there. Oh wait, and then you fucked Tom Sandoval for 7 months behind everybody's back. So at what point did you not take that advice? At what point were you trying to be a good Samaritan? She's like, I didn't take Stassi's advice because I wanted to be a good role model on television. Well, you really fumbled that ball, girl. You really fumbled that one. Good for you. You fumbled that football the same way you fumbled Sandy's balls. Sorry. It's just pointless to like bring it out now and to even kind of like drag Stassi in this and call her out and be like, that's how you make good TV is you just act bad. And the worse you act, the worse you behave, the more you get rewarded on the shows. All right. We'll see. We'll see. Good for you. I just thought that was it made me laugh when I read it out. I was like, really? Stassi told you to behave badly, and you're just like, whoa, 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 whoa. Not gonna do that. I'm gonna be a good role model on television. I'm gonna represent all the mistresses of the world. And that's not me throwing shade. That's literally what she went on her podcast and said. She said that she wanted to, she said that mistresses happen. Sometimes you have affairs. Affairs happen in the world, kind of like when you trip and fall. It's just like, okay, so affairs happen, guys, which yes, they do happen, but also they shouldn't happen. And it's a bad choice. It's a choice that people make, like mistress rights. what did Joe say? Oh God. Joe said she's a good role model for some people, specifically for mistresses who have their rights violated when they're called out. Hashtag mistress rights. Yeah, basically. She's a good role model for other women and mistresses. That's what she said, that she's glad that she can be a representation for women that go through this type of stuff, for women that bang their friends' men for 7 months and then lie about it and get you to talk about your sex life on a national television show while you're sleeping with their man. And then you file a temporary restraining order against one of your best friends who let you stay in their home. And then you go and sue the girl that your ex-friend that you cheated on her man with. There you go. Again, when her book comes out, it should absolutely be called The Audacity of a Mistress. Okay. There's not a lot of mistress role models out there. I don't know. We got Monica Lewinsky, Stormy Daniels, Rachel Yucatel. We got some pretty prominent ones out there. Now we can add Rachel Levis to the list. Oof. There will be a billboard coming soon with her and that slogan. I mean, my goodness. Okay. John Fuda. So this story has been going around about John Fuda. And so the rumor is, or the word on the curb in Patterson, is that there was Teresa wanted to bring this up at the finale. When they filmed the finale on whatever the finale was supposed to be, Teresa wanted to bring this information out. She didn't get an opportunity to. Then she tried to bring it out at the finale, like, watch party that they hosted, the alternative reunion. It was reported that Teresa also wanted to bring this information there as well, but that also got shut down. And I think it got shut down mainly because, like, they don't want any more, like, I've got an envelope, I've got an arsenal, I've got information. Like, it was no more of the gotcha stuff. Like, I think production was just like, listen, the season's gotten a little far, the season's gotten a little toxic. Like, we don't need to do more of these gotcha things. And so, what it sounds like to me, this is my own speculation, but it sounds like to me, since this wasn't able to come out at this alternate reunion that they filmed, this watch party that they filmed, which really only focuses on these women watching the finale together. Surprisingly, what a coinkydink, these articles tend to leak on the internet. I wonder how that happened. Oh, it's funny. Didn't Jennifer Aiden say on Watch What Happens Live that they all talk to bloggers? All of them have relationships with bloggers. All of them have, had communication with different bloggers. Well, Jennifer Aiden said it, not me. Okay, now there are these two articles, right? There's two of them that have been circulating about this arrest that happened. So let's just read these articles, okay? I'll read you both of them. One is Clifton. 3 arrested in home invasion. Cops say victims bound with tape at gunpoint. This was back in 2008. Clifton, 5 people were bound with duct tape at gunpoint during a home invasion on Portland Avenue Monday night, police said. 3 suspects were caught in neighboring Passaic, but police said they believe 4 more are at large. Jonathan Datria, 20, of Elmwood Park, Shamik Bird, 18, and Ajuku Boons, 27, both of Passaic, face charges of robbery, theft, unlawful possession of gun and drugs. The 3 are being held in the Clifton municipal lockup on $250,000 bail with no 10% option. At 11 p.m. Monday, 7 people inside 2 cars pull up to an apartment on Portland Avenue where 2 24-year-old roommates were entertaining 3 female guests. Clifton Police Detective Captain Robert Rowan said, as 3 people kept watch outside, the intruders kicked in the door of the apartment and rushed in, brandishing guns, he said. The suspect allegedly ordered all 5 victims to get down on the kitchen floor where they were bound with duct tape. Rowan said the suspects then demanded one of the male residents to tell them the location of the stash of drugs and money. When the victim did not cooperate, the suspect pistol whipped and kicked him as he lay on the floor. The suspects then allegedly ransacked the apartment, taking cell phones, $400, and jewelry. A short time later, Passaic police stopped a black Nissan Frontier with 3 men inside it. Police found the victim's cell phone and gold watch in the car, along with black knit caps and a ski mask. Okay. That's the first article. Here's the next article. Another arrest made in robbery. Victims were bound, apartment ransacked. Okay. This is in the Herald News. Nearly 2 months ago, after a team of robbers bound 5 people with duct tape and ransacked their apartment, police made a 4th arrest in the case. Detectives arrested Elijah Melendez, 23, while at home on Rudolph Street in Passaic Monday night. He said he had eluded detectives for weeks, but new leads to the apartment in Passaic panned out, Rowan said. Melendez did not resist arrest. Last night, our efforts paid off. A squad of detectives continues to investigate the robbery because of its brazenness. He gave the following account. On November 3rd, 2 cars carrying 7 men pulled up to a first door apartment on Portland Avenue. As 3 men stood watch, okay, so 3 of them stood watch. 3 men stood watch. The others kicked down the front door and stormed inside with a gun, ordering 2 24-year-old male roommates and 3 females in their early 20s to lie on the kitchen floor. The men tied their victims' hands and demanded one of the occupants surrender a stash of money and drugs. When he refused, he was pistol whipped on the head and began to bleed. The robbers ransacked the apartment and collected $400 in cash, cell phones, and jewelry. They fled in the 2 cars. The victims called police and gave a description of the vehicles. Members of the Passaic Police Department spotted one of the cars, a Nissan Frontier, on Randolph Street and discovered ski masks, a gold watch, and the victim's cell phone inside, authorities said. Police arrested Jonathan Dautria, 20, of Elmwood Park, Shamik Bird, 18, of Passaic, and Ajuku Boons, 27, of Passaic. They were charged with robbery, theft, and unlawful possession of a firearm and drugs. The men were being held at the Passaic County Jail on bail of $250,000 with no 10% option. Those arrested did not have outstanding criminal warrants. Rowan said. Detectives suspect that robbers knew the victims from a drug transaction. Police were still looking for 3 more suspects, including Tyreek Bird of Teaneck. He is described as 5'10", 180 pounds. Anyone with information should call Detective Christian Vassler. Okay, these are articles from 2008. So there were a total of 7 people. Okay, I'm canceling all plans to Passaic. Yeah, probably, and Patterson. 7 people. Okay. So the reason you don't hear John Fuda's name is because his name was originally Jonathan D'Ataria. Not Dautria. Yeah, that's right. Because it's spelled, that's why I was fumbling on the name, because there are times where it's spelled D''Atria. But in the articles, it's written out all as one word with no apostrophe. So it's D'Ataria, right? D'Atria. Okay. Jonathan D'Atria is his original name. He's since changed the name. He now goes by John Fuda. Who knows where he got the name Fuda? Who woulda guessed that his name was going to be changed? Okay. That said, people are like, well, he said, well, actually, people are wondering why D'Atria. Yeah. D'Atria. Got it. Thank you, Joe. People are saying that he lied because he said that he was 17, when he was involved in drugs. And they also said that he never talked about being arrested. And this is false because there are actually 2 cases where he has talked about this, because he said, I knew that this was going to come out at some point, but so I wanted to be upfront about it, but I didn't like how the information came out, which was by Teresa Giudice and Jen Aiden, who were allegedly, reportedly speaking to bloggers and communicating with bloggers. And I believe Teresa's attorney was somehow involved in this. This is what has been reported, that they were trying to get this information out through bloggers so that it could come out on the internet and then they could discuss it on the show, which is kind of what we see in that opening scene where Teresa talks about the double-sided dildo and talks about being the biggest drug dealer in Bergen County. Now, John Fuda did address this. He talked about it on Kate Casey's podcast, and he also talked about it on Kate Casey's podcast and on the Virtual Reality podcast. Virtual Reality did a live show in New York 2 months ago, or a little over 2 months ago at this point, where he does talk about it. And people are like, well, he didn't say that on the show. And I'm like, well, on one, the show is edited. They're not going to reveal every detail. And two, this happened back in 2008. He was 20 years old. People are like, well, he said he was 17 and he said that he was a kid, and he's not actually a kid, because when you're 20, you're not a kid. It's like, well, yes and no. Like, you're still stupid at 20 years old, right? People still do dumb, stupid stuff when they're young. And 20 years old, I mean, a 20-year-old boy, like, your brain isn't fully developed at that point. So when he's like, yeah, I was a kid, and people are like, well, he said 17, not 20. And they're being real specific about the age difference, right? And I'm like, well, 17 and 20, you're still kind of at the same level of maturity between 17 and 20, right? You're not 21 yet. You haven't really graduated college. If you're in college, you haven't, my personal opinion, I still think 20 is still young. You're dumb, you're stupid. I mean, I think even up until you're like 22, 23, 24, people are still dumb. Hello, I know people in their 30s that are still fucking stupid kids in their own head that need to get their shit together. So somebody at 20 years old, I give them a little grace, right? I have siblings that are, my oldest sibling is 27, 26. Yeah, I believe my brother's about 20. I think he's either 26. I don't think he's 27 yet. He has to be 26. I mean, he's maturing, but like everyone after, I consider them all still kids. Like if they were to be involved in some stupid shit, yeah, I would get that. But here, let me play you a clip of what because he did address this on the Virtual Reality podcast back in what are we in? July? I think this was back in April when they were guests in the live show.
And then, I got in some trouble and I fixed myself and cleaned myself up. I was planning at some point to come out and say, hey, look, I got in some trouble, because I knew it would come out, and go from there. But there were some charges with marijuana. I once got arrested because the guys I was with were buying marijuana, did a burglary. I got associated with that and never got convicted, just hanging out with the wrong people at the wrong time.
Yes. So that was another important piece. Yes, he was arrested. No, he was never convicted. Also, key element. Now, a lot of people on the internet are saying, "Oh, well, his parents probably paid somebody off." Like, there's a lot of conjecture going on the internet right now. And my thing is, it's like yes, I consider 20 years old to still be a dumb kid. Anybody that's a parent right now, look at your 20-year-olds. If you have a 20-year-old, or look at your kids when they were 20 years old. And if they were caught up in some shenanigans where they were hanging around the wrong crowd, I'm sure you would feel the exact same way. I mean, yeah, people are saying your frontal lobe isn't even developed until you're 25. Exactly. So even though he said 17 and he was technically 20 at the time that he was arrested, that's still only a 3-year time span. He could have been, selling pot all throughout those 3 years, maybe longer, right? We don't know. He says that he does go on further on the Virtual Reality podcast, which is Page Six's podcast. He goes more into detail and talks about how it wasn't until he had his son, and once he actually had a kid, then he was kind of like forced to grow up. And people are saying, oh, well, now he's just kind of brushing this off. Like he changed his name and he's brushing that off as if it wasn't that big of a deal. It's not that the robbery wasn't that big of a deal, right? First of all, it says that the parties knew each other through a drug deal. So both parties were involved in some shady shit. There were 7 people that were involved in the robbery and 5 people that were in the house during the robbery. Some of them were arrested and may have been convicted. I didn't look into each of those 7 people. But at least for John Fuda, why did he change his name? Probably because what he said was true. When I had a kid, I wanted to clean my life up. I changed my life. This was 2008. We're now in what, 2024? That's what, 16 years ago, right? 2008 to 2018 is 10 years. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. 15 years ago. 15, 16 years ago. So it's like, yeah, I wouldn't want to be associated for something I did when I was 20 years old, 15 years ago. Yeah, I would want to change my name so that I didn't have to continue to have this reputation, or so that I didn't have to continue to be attached to this business, right? He hasn't been arrested since. He's not had another incident related to drugs or any sort of robbery or assault. We also don't know what his exact role in this robbery was. He was arrested in association. He wasn't arrested for committing the crime, because I tried to remind everybody on Twitter yesterday. I'm like, our country is innocent until proven guilty, right? You have to be proven guilty with evidence in order to get a conviction. Then you are guilty. Similar to Teresa Giudice, right? She was convicted because she committed a federal crime, and then she went to federal prison for committing a crime, right? That's what happens. When it's proven in the court of law, then that arrest turns into a conviction and you have to serve time, or whatever your penance is that you have to pay according to the judge is what you got to do. Okay. So I do understand the Fuda's being upset about Teresa bringing this information out there. Everybody knew Teresa went to prison, but nobody was like constantly using that against her until she went and brought out this information about John Fuda. And I get it. She was upset that they were talking about Louis, but like, also, the allegations against Louis are recent allegations. They're not from 15 years ago. They're more recent allegations, right? There are still allegations that are going out there in his recent app business that has yet to be solved, you know? So, young 20-year-old all yacked up. There is no shock in this story. I mean, my thing is that I had my son at 28. I felt young and as hell still. Yeah, I mean, I think anybody in their 20s. I'm 31, and I mean, I don't know if I feel like a kid anymore. I feel like I grew up pretty young, but even I look back at when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, I did stupid shit. I did the things that I'm not proud of. If I had a past where I was arrested and got involved with the wrong crowd and all of that shit, yeah, I would want to leave that in the past too. You can talk about it, but why are we going to dig into all of the nitty-gritty details? Was the crime atrocious? It was bad. Yeah. They robbed somebody. They tied them up and robbed them. Again, as reported in these articles, it was in relation to a drug deal, right? There was, and as even Fuda says, he like, it's just, I think people are digging way too deep into this. I think they're exaggerating it way more. They're like, he's a criminal. So's Teresa. But like, again, we don't know what his involvement was. Yes, he was caught in one of the getaway cars, but we don't know if he was the one that was standing outside. We don't know if he was one of the ones that went in. We don't know if he was tying people up. We don't know the details. But what we do know is that the charges were eventually dropped and there was no conviction, and he didn't serve any actual time. So it is what it is, but I just think people are big Teresa stans and they're going so hard with this article in defense. And I'm just like, at one point, like, I'm not even like a big diehard fan for the Fudas. I don't think I'm a diehard fan of any of these cast members, to be honest with you. But at some point, it's like, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, yes, it was a terrible crime, right? Wasn't great, right? But at the end of the day, it's something that happened 15 years ago and has since been resolved. And also, it wasn't an innocent party. He didn't break into a family's home that had children and whatever. Like, these were all young, stupid kids in their late teens, early 20s, early to mid 20s that were all involved in some shady shit, right? Unfortunate. I'm sure the people that were there maybe have some sort of trauma or PTSD. I empathize with that as a result of it. But it's like, how much are we going to have to go back? And they're like, well, he didn't want to own up to it. He didn't want to admit it. He did admit it. He's talked about this. Just because you didn't see it on the show. And some Loser on Twitter even said that too. They were just like, well, I don't care what he said on a podcast after the fact. What I care about is what he said on the show where he lied. I was like, okay, well, he didn't lie. And also, the show is edited. They're not going to give you his 10-minute explanation story in a 45-minute Real Housewives episode that focuses on these women, not their husbands. Yes, the husbands have a role and they are involved to a degree, but come on. At least Teresa's crime wasn't a violent crime. He was 24 and his parents had money. He was 20. And whether he had money or not, it's beside the fact. Yeah, Teresa's crime was a non-violent crime. Yeah, I agree. Thank you for sharing those details. I had seen Reddit when someone had posted the article but had altered John Fuda's age from 20 to 28 to make it seem like he wasn't younger. That's the other thing. People are like doctoring these things and photoshopping things, and I don't even think his photo was actually part of the original article when the article went out, which tells you what? Oh, that maybe he wasn't the prime suspect in the crime. If they don't have his photo there and they have a photo of two other men, here, let's pull up the article again. Not the Photoshop version that people are sharing, but this one, if you zoom in, you see Melendez and Bird are right there in the article. You know who that is not? John Fuda. Zach, why are you backing him so hard? Here's the thing. Again, I'm not loyal or diehard for any of these people. Okay. I'm backing him because of the facts of the case, right? 15 years ago, old case, arrested, never convicted. Photo not in the newspaper. Even though they name him, they use two other people's mugshots in the article, which tells me those are the two primary suspects in the case. So to me, it's not that big of a deal. I'm writing for him because it's like it's silly that people are writing so hard about something that happened 15 years ago when there's no history or pattern of this type of behavior in the last 15, 16 years. What's the point? Sometimes I feel like people are on here not listening. Yeah, they just want to fight. He has no reason or anything to gain from backing him. If anything, it's the opposite. Yeah, I mean, if anything, if I wanted cheap clicks and cheap likes and whatever and cheap views, I would be like, ooh, look at exposing John Fuda, blah, 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 Team Teresa. That would get me a ton of engagement. But I've never done it's the same thing with like the Shannon Bedore Alexis Bellino lawsuit that we talked about the other day. Same thing. I could very easily go hard at Alexis. Why? Because everybody loves Shannon Bedore right now. I didn't do that. I brought up the case. We talked about the details of the lawsuit. We talked about cease and desist and how they work. What I do is I defend what I see as the facts. I don't go, and people will still comment and be like, well, I still think he's a bad person. I feel like he probably was involved in a much deeper level. And I'm like, great. I think and I feel are not facts. They're opinions. Yeah. Let's see. What did Michelle say? Michelle say backing him because we have brain cells and can look at facts critically. Thank you, Michelle. Zach is like Judge Judy has comments. Could you imagine if I would love a court show. Oh my God. Could you? Oh, that's actually a good idea. I would love to do like a squash the beef. I'm not a real judge, but I'm a judgy bitch. I would love, like, celebs have done that before, right? Like where there's like they're not judges or they're not attorneys, but they have like court shows where they're just like, I'm gonna settle the beef. What's the tea? Give me the facts. I didn't say talk. I love Judge Judy. She's great. Teresa was also in jail 15 or so years ago. Was it that long ago? No, she was not in jail 15 years ago. Let's see. When did Teresa go to, not jail? I remind everybody, Teresa was in federal prison. There's a difference. Teresa entered federal prison in January 2015. So we're comparing something that happened when he was 20 years old back in 2008 to a grown woman convicted in a court of law by a judge in 2015 when she had to serve federal prison time. Jail, prison, a little different. But sure, let's bend the facts. Bend the facts to defend who you stand. We got to get you a gavel. That's what we should do. We should have a court case of the week where I settled the beef. My husband was arrested for drug charges when he was really young. Thank you for sharing, Mally. Ray Day's beauty lockout said his folks paid for him to get off. Maybe. I don't know. Again, I don't know the details. I don't care about something that happened 15 years ago. Okay. People are allowed to change, as you said, 15 years ago with no pattern of the same behavior. Yeah, here's the thing. If there was a ton of other cases like this, like here's the thing. Louis has a ton of people that have come out and said really terrible things about him. He has a history of shady behavior in the past. That makes me a little more skeptical because not only is it more recent, but there's a pattern of it, right? Even Teresa, there's no pattern of her doing these things. Like I've always thought that Teresa was not innocent, but like I always thought that Teresa was done wrong by her husband. Joe Giudice was the one that was being shady and Teresa just got dragged into it, right? The only reason I bring up Teresa now is because it's like, yeah, people have a lot to say in defending Teresa, but she did serve time. She was convicted and was in federal prison, you know? So it's just, Zach, is Zach giving his opinion not the point of the podcast? Well, I'm not just giving my opinion. I'm actually reading the article and stating the facts to you as well. So I give you the facts and I give you a little bit of my opinion as well. Teresa went to camp 10 years ago, 9 years ago, actually. I would watch Zach on a crime show. Why? Like I'm committing crimes? New Jersey sucks. That is a crime. You know what's funny? I know we keep referencing these old reality shows, but someone posted this clip from Mob Wives and it was Drita and she was beating up Karen because remember they were like sleeping with each other's exes and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, Mob Wives is where it was at. And they were like beating each other up and her hair's all over the place. And Renee's like, I'm bleeding. And Drita's like, come at me, keep her over there. And then Karen's like, you want it? Let's fight fair. And so it was good. But I was just like, oof, the fighting, the blood, the previous arrest, sleeping with each other's boyfriends, like all of that sort of stuff. I'm like, Housewives fans today could never. They would be in a fetal position in the corner, crying, sucking their thumb, praying to Teresa Giudice. Y'all have gotten so damn sensitive. New Jersey used to be tough on weed crimes. Well, Janelle. Fuda has changed. I can't say the same for Teresa and Louis. Well, people do change from when they're 20 to when they're 40, right? Or in their 30s. People typically change in that time period, right? Because your brain develops, you mature, you become a parent, you go through life kind of knocks you down in that 20s time period, right? From 20 to 30. You experience some shit. And then the 30s is kind of where you really build yourself. Just like I would never date the complete lover that I dated when I was 20. You grow and you learn. Yeah. And who you're into at 20 is very different from who you're into later in life. I think the Fudas are trash. Listen, that's totally fine. You don't have to like the Fudas. Like I said, I'm not diehard for the Fudas. I am diehard for the facts. I like the Fudas, and Rachel's a good mom and wife, I think. Yeah. I loved Mob Wives. At least they were honest. Yeah, they were honest and they stood on business. Drita stood on business. So hypocritical to defend Teresa saying it's been 9 years ago. Meanwhile, what happened to Fuda was way longer. Way longer. And Teresa was a fully baked grown adult mother, wife with children at the time that she was arrested. John Fuda was 20. Big difference. Big difference. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Judge Zach activating the record straight. Zactivated. Yes, I wish they would bring back Mob Wives. I don't think they could bring back Mob Wives. Trust me, if they brought back Mob Wives, every loser with a Twitter account would be like, cancel them. Oh my God, it's so toxic. Women don't support women. Tearing people down. Oh my God, she was arrested. She slept with somebody's man. Oh. Again, fetal position, praying to Teresa Giudice. Joe Giudice was committing mortgage fraud while John was being a 20-year-old dumbass. Yeah. Basically, Mallory. So those is the details of the fact. Those is the details of the case. Any other? We talked about Rachel and Lala. We talked about Melissa and Kathy. R.I.P. to Big Ange. Big Ange with a cigarette in her hand. You are my fire, the one desire. Drita did just. Oh, yeah, she has a podcast now. Oh, maybe I should get Drita on the podcast. I would love to interview Drita. She'd be great. Drita would have handled Teresa. Yeah, I think Drita would have handled Teresa too. Drita would handle anybody. Are we talking about the leaked video from Love Island? Oh, yes. Are there any Love Island fans here? Raise your hands. I did not watch this season of Love Island, but I will say, okay, first of all, I don't know anything. I'm just going to say my commentary is about to be completely out of context, okay? But let me see. Where is, because Alex Cooper just had on one of the guys from Love Island. What's his name? Rob. What's his name? Rob what? Rob Lowe? No, what's his name? Rob Ross Rouch? Rob Rouch. First of all, he is very hot. Look at the way he holds his snake, you guys. Look at how big, long, and strong that snake is. And the way he's just straddling it, you know he's used to straddling some big snakes. But also, he's just, again, I never watched Love Island, but he makes me want to watch. Okay, so actually, that's a lie. I think I saw one episode. Like maybe part of one episode because I was over at my mom's house and my sister was watching it with her boyfriend, who's not her boyfriend, but he is her boyfriend. I almost said his name because it's really funny. But whatever. They were watching it and I was there and she was kind of giving me details and I was like, "Ooh, who's that guy? He's really cute." I think, and she's like, "Oh, he's the one that everybody is going after and everybody wants him and he used to be on before and then they brought him back and blah blah blah." Okay. Rob. And Donna Bowling also posted something about Rob and how she listened to she seems like a Rob apologist and I don't fault her for that. Again, never seen Love Island except for like that 30 minutes that I watched of it that one time. Okay. So Zach, who do you prefer, Rob, Jesse, or Austin? I don't know who any of them are. All I know is I saw Rob on Call Her Daddy and he came in there with his overalls and I'm like, "Oh, I want some." I was like Regina George. I was like, "Now I want some overalls." But everyone's like, he's a gaslighter and he's toxic but he's hot. And I'm like, it sounds like just my type. Gaslighter, yes, please. Leaves you on red. Thank you. I love it. I'm just like, you know what? I don't even know what he did, but I will already apologize for him, right? I will be a delusional tree stump for Rob. Just because he's hot. Ooh, shit. Ooh, there's some shit going down on the Twitter right now. Who is this bitch? Lauren Portella? Lauren Portella just went on Instagram and tagged Jeff Lewis and Shane Douglas in my interview with Chef Stu. She's tagged at Jeff Lewis, at Shane Douglas. Thought you guys would find this conversation interesting. What a bitch. Like going and tagging them to start drama? That's my job. I host a podcast where I start the drama. Red flags or Zach's green flags. No, Laura, actually, they're not like red flags or green flags. They're just red flags and I love them. I don't even need to paint them green. We don't need to bleach them white. I just will apologize for, what's his name? Rob? I'm just going to say this is a Rob Stan podcast. But Joe brought up Kendall. And Kendall is one of the guys. Again, I don't know the show. I don't know anybody's relationships or their dynamics. I just know Kendall put his booty. Well, yeah, he filmed his booty hole. Okay. He was naked and there was a bed and he got on the bed and he bent over and then he did this. And he like did a full, it was like, "Oh, that's a lot of cake. I didn't realize it was my birthday, you know?" And so he flashed all the cake, right? happy birthday. And then he turned right. He was totally naked. And so the clip was going viral on the internet. And thank you to our detective, Joe Deedle. He tracked down the clip, and my eyes, I was like, well, I don't even know Kendall, but now I feel like I have seen his colon at this point that I'm just like, wow, that's wild. Now, couple of things, right? Because we've talked a lot about like revenge porn lately, and obviously this isn't great that it leaked. I think we're so desensitized to like here's what I'm going to say. Kendall, you should sue somebody for revenge porn. Rachel Leviss, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Because your clip, your booty hole is not all over the internet, okay? Like, this is when you sue somebody for revenge porn because you were actually, like, embarrassed by it. And to my knowledge, Kendall's not suing anybody. He was like, listen, it's unfortunate. I trusted someone with access. It leaked on the internet. Shit happens. But whatever. At least my booty hole is clean, right? And he had his sausage in the shot as well. He had cake and sausage, right? It was a whole buffet on the internet this week with Kendall. Kendall was on display each and every day. So while I do feel bad for Kendall, he's like, listen, shit happens. I trusted somebody. My trust was violated. It is what it is. Rachel's like, shit happens. My video never leaked. My booty hole's not all over the internet. And yeah, I'm still going to sue the chick that I, was banging her man. Dumb. Literally dumb. Sydney Sweeney says, I listened to your most recent Disaster Daters. It was hilarious. And I'll definitely leave a review. Zach, your body language had me cracking up knowing the behind the scenes tea. Hilarious interview. Yeah, when you know that Jeff and I was, and it's funny because Jeff, my co-host, even came out and he's like, Zach literally ignored me this entire episode. So it should be an interesting watch. And you can just see my body is turned fully towards Stu and did not look at Jeff at all. But yeah, it's a good one. So be sure to tune in. But also, who's that girl? That Lauren chick. Lauren out here stirring up drama, tagging Stu. Ooh, this is gonna me some drama today. Because it's basically about Stu, Jeff Lewis, and Chef Stu O'Keefe, right? Now, here's what I will say. I did not know Jeff Lewis well. But he had said nice things about me on his radio show. And then he had invited me to come on Jeff Lewis Live. I did Jeff Lewis Live, I think, back in January, February, and had a lovely time. Probably one of the best experiences I've had doing somebody else's show. It was lovely. We had coffee beforehand. We chatted about the topics. They were all so nice to me. Had a great time. Told my story about sleeping with a little person. Went viral on the internet. Great time. Shortly after that, I was never invited back. They told me they wanted me back, and I tried to reach out to Shane. Shane never had me back. He's basically ghosted me. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I was also already friends with Chef Stu at the time that I had done Jeff Lewis Live. Chef Stu was in my show at the Bourbon Room back in November. He was also scheduled to be in my Valentine's Day show in February. So there was no secret about me having a friendship with Stu. However, the same way I picked no beef, no sides in the Heather McDonald versus Jeff Lewis drama, I had no skin in this game, right? And the thing is, before taping Jeff Lewis Live, Jeff seemed to have been aware that I was friends with Stu. So I didn't think that that was much of an issue. I was happy to still do Jeff Lewis Live and be friends with Stu, but so I ended up doing Stu's podcast shortly after, right? I think it was like a couple weeks or a few weeks later after I did Jeff Lewis Live. Stu launched a podcast. He had Amy Phillips on. He asked me to be on. I was happy to come on. I did the show. I was a guest, whatever. After that is when Shane basically ghosted me and I never heard from them again. And Jeff had originally expressed wanting to have me back on the show. And then I never came back on, which obviously can't be a scheduling conflict because it's been several months and they have the same people on regularly over and over and over again. Pretty sure they could have slipped me in at some point. They haven't, right? I've since continued to do Stu's podcast, and over the past couple of months, Stu and I have gotten really close. We've become quite fond of each other, and we talk all the time. So I had Stu come on Disaster Daters, and we talked about not anyone's, well, Jeff does come up a little bit, but there's like nothing bad that he says about Jeff. And I did ask Stu, and I knew exactly what I was doing in asking Stu because the accusation that Jeff Lewis has made against Chef Stu on his podcast or on his radio show is that Stu cheated on him, or he's alluded to the fact that Stu has cheated on him. And there's something with like an STD or I don't know, whatever. But oh, Teresa Giudice just posted a statement. Okay, I'll get into it in just a sec. But so basically, there are these rumors out there that Chef Stu cheated on Jeff Lewis. Okay, so when bringing Stu on my podcast, Disaster Daters, to talk about our dating lives, I asked Stu, "Hey, have you ever cheated on an ex ever?" And Stu says no. And you see that I press him. I'm like, never a text message, never a drunken butt grab, never like a, an emotional affair. I go like, set the record straight. Have you ever cheated ever? He says no. Then I ask him if exes have ever cheated on him. He says he's never really had any proof of that. Right. But he goes on to say nice things. In the interview, you'll hear him say that he considers Jeff Lewis one of the loves of his life. Right. I think he said there are 3 or 4 people that he has fallen in love with, and Jeff was one of them. So he said very nice things about Jeff Lewis. So the fact that like I already know that this is going to stir up drama and it's going to be whatever, but like listen, at this point I don't have any loyalty to Jeff. Stu has become my close friend. I tried to be nice and friendly with both of them, but I've clearly been blocked from coming on Jeff Lewis Live. I have not heard from him. I tried to be funny and cheeky, and I think I tagged Jeff in something because he had like a little person on Sirius XM, and I think I posted something funny, and I was like, "Oh, is he single?" LOL. Never heard from him. Like I said, Shane completely ghosted me. I had a lovely time. The reception was great, so I didn't see why I wasn't brought back unless it was in some way related to me doing Stu's podcast or having a friendship with Stu. But like I said, I have been friends with Stu for a while. That information was never disclosed. I mean, that information was never hidden. It was always disclosed up front. So there's the tea. I didn't even give you the members only. I just put it all out there because that's what it is. It is what it is. Did you ask about scam likely? What is scam likely? I saw somebody comment about scam likely. I don't know what that is. And listen, I still to this day have nothing against Jeff Lewis. I have no beef. I have no issue with Jeff Lewis. I'm a little salty that I've somehow been blocked from doing his show, but I have nothing against him. My experience with Jeff Lewis was lovely. My experience doing his show was lovely. If he asked me to do it again, and listen, if he asked me to do it again, I probably would do it over doing Stu's podcast because at least Jeff pays me, And a bitch is never a dollar makes me holla. I'm kidding. Obviously, Stu is a friend and I care about him very much, but like, come on. So I don't believe Stu. I listened to all of that Jeff drama on Sirius, and Jeff doesn't hold back on dropping bombs. Listen, I don't know what happened in their relationship. Okay. I don't know the details of what went down between the two of them. I just know there were accusations of cheating and there was some alluding to cheating. So yeah. Sounds like a classic Jeff Lewis move. I don't know. I mean, Stu did change his contact for his ex as scam likely while he was dating Jeff. Oh, that is new information to me. I did not know this. That is new information that I was never disclosed to me. Who is scam likely? Y'all are stirring up some shit today. Nothing bad was said about Jeff Lewis ever. Thank you, Billy. Nothing bad was ever said about Jeff Lewis on the podcast. I've never had a bad thing to say about Jeff Lewis. I have no bad experience with Jeff Lewis to speak about. And whatever went down, if Stu has beef with Jeff, that's between Jeff and Stu, right? Jeff Lewis and Stu, not me. You can be friends with anyone. You shouldn't be treated differently because of who you're friends with. That's ridiculous. Yeah, I agree. You didn't pick a side. No, I didn't. It's because you're friends with Stu. That's why you weren't invited back. Yeah, but I was friends with Stu when I originally did Jeff Lewis Live. That's the part that's so confusing to me. And I've never been nasty to Jeff. I've never had anything nasty to say about Jeff. Ever, 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 ever. Maybe it's Justin that got you blocked. Who's Justin? Justin Martindale? I don't care for that bitch. He didn't have nice things. I saw he like talked some shit on Facebook in like a comment or something that somebody sent me a screenshot of. I don't know Justin Martindale. So I really can't speak to him, but like scam likely was how Stu saved his ex in his phone so that if he called, Jeff wouldn't know. That's shady. Okay. I did not know that detail until this moment. So you're seeing my live reaction. That's a little shady. That's a little shady. Just going to say that. He was hinting at being friends with Heather McDonald. Oh, Justin Martindale's friends with Heather McDonald, or Jeff Lewis is friends with Heather McDonald? The same ex that Jeff had said he told Stu not to talk to anymore. That's shady. That's shady. That is shady. Again, new information, reacting in real time. Don't know the in-depth details of this, but that is shady, I will say. And listen, I call out my friends when they do shady shit. They both used to be good friends with Heather McDonald. Jeff might have thought you would talk about Stu. Reason he put you on a show. I don't know. He didn't ask me about Stu. And it didn't seem like he cared to talk about Stu when we did the podcast. And I think he even said, like, I don't want to talk about my exes. And I was fine with that. I was like, yeah, we don't need to talk about Stu. And if we did talk about Stu, I would be honest in whatever was said. Like if we were live on Jeff Lewis Live and he told me that story, I was like, I did not know that. That sounds shady. And I will have words with Stu after this. I would have no problem saying that. I've always been 100% honest and straightforward, and I always give it to you straight. One who cares what people do in their bedroom, and two, he was young when that occurred. He may as well have been 17. I think you're probably referring to John Fuda. Jeff told Stu he didn't trust the ex, and Jeff Lewis listeners saw Stu and his ex out to each while Jeff was out of town. Ooh, messy. A listener sent a photo of to Jeff Lewis that Stu was out with the ex. Oh, I did not know that. I'm gonna have to have questions for Stu. Again, I was so not invested in this drama, which is why I've never taken a side in all this. And here's the thing: at the end of the day, if Stu was talking to his ex or whatever the case was, even if Stu was wrong, I will say, hey, you fucked up and you need to own that. I'm still not going to not be friends with him, though. He's still my friend, and I will still be friends with him. Your friends fuck up. So I'm not going to cut him off for that. Follow-up episode on disaster days. Maybe we will do a follow-up. Well, Mallory, let me know if there's more tea that comes out on Jeff Lewis Live. All right, there is a new episode of Disaster Daters that's out there. What's the tea? You didn't tell me about Scam Likely. Shady, shady. Perfect episode to get the gavel out for Judge Zack. I mean, all right. Check out Disaster Daters. There's a new episode out. Oh my God, I love when Zack calls people out. Listen, you know who I am. I am who I am. I'm always going to be me. Okay. Always. Period. End of story. All right, guys. I love you. I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Catch Disaster Daters. There's a new episode of the Pop Report out right now. So if you have not tuned in or caught up on the Pop Report, you can watch a new episode on YouTube. You can watch a new episode on Spotify, or you can listen on all podcast platforms. So go on, everyone, go watch Disaster Daters. It's great. Teresa's. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Teresa's statement. Let's read Teresa's statement real quickly before we wrap. Let's see. Oh, TMZ wants me to talk about Amber Rose. I'm going to have to brief up on Amber Rose. Okay, Teresa's statement. Let's see. Teresa Giudice posted on Instagram. Thank you for reminding me. I've been on the Real Housewives of New Jersey for 14 seasons. And during that time, I have seen and been a part of my fair share of drama with castmates. What is happening off camera on social media is absolutely disgusting and is fueled by toxic people who are not affiliated with the show or the cast and are only interested in promoting themselves by spreading their hate through false narratives and lies. It has affected all of us on the cast and our families. They are attacking our children, going after our businesses, and they are turning something that is supposed to be entertainment into something very toxic. This hate and toxicity has to stop. I'm asking everyone to stop engaging in any negativity towards my castmates and all of our families. Enough is enough. Love, 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 Teresa. Do I believe her? No, but I'm glad that she posted this. Hopefully it'll get some of the tree stumps to chill the fuck out, right? No, it's not. No, they're saying, would you be interested in commenting on a news story that we just added? Amber Rose's uncensored College Hill fight with Josephine Hernandez surfaces. Oof. Jocelyn. I don't know who Jocelyn Hernandez is, but let me look into it. They originally wanted me to talk about Kathy Hilton and Croy Bierman. Now I don't mind talking about Amber Rose. I actually will talk about anything. All right. That said, I'm glad Teresa's addressed it. Hopefully, and listen, I want to be done with all of it, right? Let's be done with it all. Actually, I think, well, no, I was going to say, I think I might actually be doing Stu's podcast soon, but I actually don't think I will be. I think somebody else is going to end up doing it. He was going to ask me to fill in for that person, but I think that person's going to end up doing it, so it should be fine. But yeah, Teresa has a lot of nerve. She's the prime example of toxic. See, Billy, that was the first thought that crossed my mind, but I'm just like, listen. I'm done with the drama, and yeah, like it's like the takedown of cat. Like it's one thing to watch Mob Wives and see them fight and be like, yeah, crazy. But when people on the internet are like I had a friend that called me this morning and is like, oh my god, there's this crazy like unhinged person that's like, you know, like it's just wild the level of like craziness that has gone on. With how deeply people get invested into things. I'm like, y'all need to get lives sometimes. All right. Catch the Pop Report, catch Disaster Eaters, leave comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. I love you. I appreciate you. You can follow me at Just Plain Zack, follow the podcast at No Filter with Zack, and stay tuned. I'll be back live again on Thursday. All right. Love you guys. Talk to you later. Ciao for now. Bye.